Alex was an ambitious and hardworking individual, devoted to both his career and his family, especially his wife, Sarah. They had been married for 5 wonderful years, and Alex believed they had a strong bond, built on love and trust. Their friends often remarked on how perfect they seemed together, a couple who complemented each other in every way. They shared dreams, laughter, and a home filled with warmth and affection, creating a life that many envied. However, the stress of work often kept Alex late at the office, while Sarah seemed to be growing increasingly distant. At first, he attributed her mood swings and late nights to the pressures of her own job as a marketing executive. She was passionate about her career, and Alex made an effort to support her, cooking dinner and taking care of their home, convinced that this phase would pass. He would often leave little notes for her, reminding her of his love, but her responses grew more distracted. As the weeks turned into months, a nagging feeling began to creep into Alex's mind, a whisper that something was not quite right. He noticed Sarah spending more time at work, her phone buzzing incessantly, and her laughter sounding hollow, as if it were a performance rather than genuine joy. One evening, as Alex returned home from work, he noticed an unusual silence that enveloped their apartment. The lights were dimmed, and Sarah was sitting on the couch, her expression unreadable. He approached her, sensing something was off. "Hey, everything okay?" he asked gently, concern etching his features. Sarah looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaky. His heart sank, a feeling of dread creeping in. It was a phrase that often preceded devastating news, and he could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. As she spoke, the truth unfolded like a dark storm cloud. Sarah had been having an affair with her boss, Mark, a charismatic man who had always seemed too charming for his own good. The betrayal cut deeper than Alex could have ever imagined. Not only had she shattered their vows, but she was also pregnant with Mark's child. The earth beneath Alex's feet felt like it was crumbling away. Disbelief, anger, and heartbreak surged through him, leaving him gasping for breath. The image of Sarah in the arms of another man, laughing and sharing intimate moments, haunted him relentlessly. It felt as if the very foundation of his life had been ripped away, leaving him standing in a void of despair. Days turned into weeks, and the initial shock slowly morphed into a deep sorrow. Alex moved through life like a ghost, each day feeling heavier than the last. He had thought he knew Sarah completely, but now he felt like an outsider in his own life. Friends and family noticed his change in demeanor but were unaware of the turmoil that had engulfed him. He often found himself at work, staring blankly at his computer screen, unable to focus on anything but the echo of Sarah's words. Coffee breaks became solitary affairs, and the laughter of colleagues felt like a distant memory. Even mundane tasks became burdensome, each chore a reminder of the life he once had. In the midst of this pain, Alex found solace in late-night walks around the city. The streets were alive with laughter and joy, a stark contrast to the turmoil in his heart. One night, as he wandered beneath the flickering streetlights, he encountered a group of friends from his college days who invited him to join them for drinks. Hesitant at first, he accepted their offer, and for a fleeting moment, he felt a semblance of normalcy. They reminisced about old times, shared stories, and laughed, but Alex could hardly shake the feeling of emptiness that lingered just beneath the surface. The warmth of their camaraderie felt like a fragile shield against the cold reality of his life, and he found himself laughing along, even as he felt detached from the joy around him. As the weeks passed, Alex began to piece his life back together. He sought therapy, leaning into his emotions instead of burying them. The therapist encouraged him to express his anger and hurt, to confront the deep sense of betrayal that had taken root in his heart. Slowly, he learned to forgive himself for the betrayal, realizing that Sarah's choices were not a reflection of his worth but her own struggles. He began to understand that he was not defined by her actions, but by how he chose to respond to them. The sessions became a safe haven where he could unravel his emotions, a space where he learned to reclaim his sense of identity. Each session peeled back layers of pain, revealing a strength he had not known he possessed. Meanwhile, Sarah gave birth to a baby boy named Ethan. The moment she called to inform Alex, his heart raced with mixed emotions. He felt a mixture of anger, confusion, and a longing for closure. The news felt surreal, as if it belonged in someone else's story, not his. They agreed to meet to discuss co-parenting, an arrangement that sent waves of anxiety through Alex. He knew they would have to navigate this new reality together, yet the thought of seeing her again, now a mother to another man's child, felt unbearable. When they met, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. Sarah cradled Ethan in her arms, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and regret. Alex struggled to maintain his composure, his heart aching at the sight of the innocent child. He forced himself to focus on the baby, reminding himself that Ethan was not to blame for the circumstances of his birth. "He's beautiful," Alex managed to say, his voice trembling slightly. "Thank you," Sarah replied softly, looking at him with a mixture of hope and fear. "I want us to figure this out, Alex. I know I've hurt you deeply, but I want to be a good mother for Ethan, and I hope we can work together." The conversation was fraught with emotions. They discussed schedules, visits, and the challenges that lay ahead. While Alex felt anger simmering beneath the surface, he also recognized a flicker of determination. He knew that this child deserved a chance at a happy life, free from the shadows of betrayal. After their meeting, Alex walked away feeling more resolved than ever to find his own path toward healing. As days turned into weeks, Alex began to redefine his life. He poured himself into his work, taking on new projects that reignited his passion. He also reconnected with friends he had lost touch with over the years, embracing the support they offered. Slowly but surely, he began to rediscover parts of himself that had been overshadowed by the pain of betrayal. He took up new hobbies, such as painting and hiking, finding solace in the beauty of nature and the creative expression of his emotions. These activities became an outlet, helping him channel his feelings into something productive and fulfilling. Despite the progress he was making, thoughts of Sarah and Ethan often invaded his mind. Each time he saw Ethan, he felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. He wondered what kind of father he wanted to be, especially since he had never intended to share his life with anyone but Sarah. He grappled with feelings of resentment toward Sarah but also a strong desire to protect and nurture the child who was now a part of his reality. One day, after a particularly difficult afternoon, Alex received a text from Sarah asking if she could bring Ethan over for a visit. He hesitated but ultimately agreed, knowing that he needed to face his feelings head-on. When Sarah arrived, she seemed nervous but hopeful. As they sat together on the couch, Ethan cooing in his playpen, a silence fell over them, heavy with unsaid words. "I know this is hard for you, Alex," Sarah began, her voice trembling. "I can't change what happened, but I want to be honest and share my journey as a mother with you. I want Ethan to know both of his parents." Alex looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. "I appreciate that, Sarah. But I need time. I'm still processing everything, and I have my own wounds that need healing." He felt a mix of empathy and anger, but he was determined to be civil for Ethan's sake. As the days turned into months, their co-parenting arrangement began to take shape. They learned to communicate more effectively, setting boundaries and finding ways to support one another. Slowly, trust began to rebuild, though it was fragile at times. They attended parenting classes together, navigating the challenges of raising a child while still grappling with their past. In the midst of this, Alex found comfort in creating a stable environment for Ethan. He began to envision a future where he could be a positive presence in the boy's life, even if it meant adjusting to an unexpected reality. He drew strength from the knowledge that love could still flourish despite betrayal. He started to think of Ethan as a separate entity, a child deserving of love and care, and he felt a growing affection for him. As the seasons changed, so did Alex's heart. He realized that healing was not a linear journey but a series of ups and downs. There were still moments of anger and sadness, but they were interspersed with joy and laughter as he built memories with Ethan. He would take Ethan to the park, pushing him on the swings, and watching the boy's face light up with delight. Each smile from Ethan felt like a balm to his wounds, a reminder that love could transcend even the deepest hurts. Eventually, Sarah and Alex found a rhythm in their co-parenting relationship. They began to communicate more openly about their feelings, sharing not just the logistics of raising Ethan, but also their hopes and fears. It was a slow process, but with each passing day, they moved a little closer to understanding one another, and perhaps even healing. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching Ethan play in the yard, Sarah turned to Alex, her expression serious. "I've been reflecting a lot on everything that's happened," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I know I can't undo the past, but I want you to know how deeply I regret hurting you. I never wanted to lose you. Alex felt a lump in his throat. This was the honesty he had longed for, but it also stirred up the pain he had worked so hard to overcome. I appreciate that, Sarah. It's been difficult for me to reconcile my feelings, but I'm trying to focus on Ethan. He deserves both of us, and I want to be there for him. Their conversation lingered in the air, filled with unspoken words and old wounds. Yet, as they continued to share their thoughts, something shifted. They began to reminisce about the happier times in their relationship, the laughter, the dreams they had shared. Alex realized that amidst the pain, there were still fond memories that held value. As summer approached, Alex decided to take Ethan on a weekend camping trip, inviting Sarah to join them. It was an opportunity for them to bond as a family, and he hoped it would further their healing process. Sarah hesitated but ultimately agreed, recognizing the importance of being present in Ethan's life. The trip was filled with laughter and a sense of adventure. They set up a tent together, roasted marshmallows over a campfire, and shared stories under the stars. Watching Sarah interact with Ethan, Alex felt a sense of peace wash over him. He could see the joy in her eyes as she played with their son, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of warmth towards her. It was a moment of clarity, that their past did not have to define their future. As they sat around the fire, Sarah turned to Alex. "Thank you for inviting me. I know this is new for us, but I think we're making progress. I see how much you care for Ethan, and it means the world to me." "I've learned that love can take many forms," Alex replied, looking at the flames flickering in the night. "It's not just about romantic love, it's about being there for each other, especially for him." The connection between them deepened that night, but they both understood that the road ahead would still be challenging. They needed to continue to communicate and navigate their emotions. After the camping trip, they agreed to have regular family outings, creating a sense of unity for Ethan while allowing themselves to heal together. As the months rolled by, Alex found himself growing more comfortable with the new dynamic. He appreciated the moments they shared as a family, often engaging in activities that brought them closer. They took Ethan to the zoo, the beach, and local festivals, creating memories that filled the air with laughter and joy. Yet, there were still moments of tension. Occasionally, resentments would bubble up during discussions about Ethan's upbringing, but Alex had learned to address these feelings head-on. Each time they faced a challenge, he felt himself growing stronger and more resilient. He had transformed his pain into a determination to be the best father he could be. As Ethan grew, so did their relationship. He was a curious and energetic toddler, full of wonder and laughter. He became the center of their worlds, a beacon of hope that reminded them both of the beauty that could emerge from the ashes of their past. Alex found himself falling in love with fatherhood, relishing the small moments, the way Ethan's eyes sparkled with excitement, the sound of his laughter, and the comfort of holding him close. One day, while playing in the park, Alex noticed a small group of children gathering around a puppet show. He watched as Ethan's eyes widened with delight, completely captivated by the performance. In that moment, Alex saw a future filled with possibility. He envisioned a life where he could be a positive presence in Ethan's life, shaping him into a kind and loving individual. After the show, they sat on a bench, and as Ethan rested his head on Alex's shoulder, Sarah joined them. "He really enjoyed that," she said, a smile lighting up her face. "Yeah, he did," Alex replied, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I think he's going to be quite the character." That evening, as they walked home, Alex realized that while the journey had been fraught with challenges, it had also been filled with unexpected blessings. He felt a newfound appreciation for the bond they were forming, not just as co-parents, but as a family. It was clear that their shared love for Ethan had created a bridge between them, one that allowed them to navigate their complex emotions together. As the seasons changed, so did their relationship. They began to share more personal moments, discussing their dreams and aspirations outside of parenting. Alex discovered that Sarah had taken up painting again, something she had loved in her youth. Inspired by her creativity, he encouraged her to showcase her work in a local art fair. This act of support sparked a deeper connection between them, as they began to see glimpses of the people they once were before their lives became intertwined with heartbreak. One evening, after a particularly successful art fair, Sarah invited Alex over to her place to celebrate. The atmosphere was light, filled with laughter and the aroma of homemade pasta. As they sat across the table from each other, sharing stories and enjoying the moment, Alex felt a sense of comfort that he hadn't expected. "Thank you for believing in me," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling. "I couldn't have done this without your support." Alex smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "You're incredibly talented, Sarah. You just needed to find your way back to it. I'm glad I could be a part of that." After dinner, they moved to the living room, where Sarah had set up her latest painting, an abstract piece filled with vibrant colors that seemed to dance on the canvas. "What do you think?" she asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "It's amazing," he replied, genuinely impressed. "It captures a sense of freedom and joy. It's like you poured your heart into it." Sarah beamed at his compliment, a flush of pride evident on her cheeks. "I wanted to create something that reflected how I feel now, especially after everything that's happened." As they discussed her art, Alex felt an undeniable shift in their dynamic. The weight of their past began to feel lighter, and he found himself drawn to Sarah in a way he hadn't anticipated. As the night wore on, they reminisced about their shared history, the laughter they once had, and the dreams they had forged together. There were still scars between them, but they were beginning to understand that healing was a process, and perhaps they could emerge from it stronger. As the months continued to pass, they found themselves attending more events together, always with Ethan in tow. They explored parks, attended community events, and even took family trips to nearby attractions. Each outing solidified their bond, and slowly, Alex began to see a future that included Sarah, not as a romantic partner, but as a friend and co-parent. One sunny afternoon, they decided to take Ethan to a local fair. The air was filled with laughter and the sweet smell of cotton candy. As they walked through the fairgrounds, Ethan tugged at their hands, eager to explore. They took turns winning him prizes at games, riding the carousel, and sharing a giant funnel cake, all the while laughing and enjoying each other's company. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the fair, Alex and Sarah found a quiet spot to sit and watch Ethan play with other children. In that moment, they shared a comfortable silence, watching their son's joy unfold before them. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Sarah asked softly, breaking the tranquility. "Yeah, I do," Alex replied, his gaze still on Ethan. "It hasn't been easy, but I think we're getting better at this, at being a family." Sarah nodded, looking contemplative. "I hope we can continue to build on this. I want Ethan to grow up with happy memories of both of us." "Me too," Alex agreed, glancing at her. "You know, I never thought I could feel this way after everything. But seeing you as a mother, it's changed my perspective." Sarah's eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment, there was an undeniable connection, a spark that hinted at a deeper understanding between them. It was a moment filled with possibility, but they both knew they had to tread carefully, respecting the journey they had been on. As the fair began to wind down, they made their way to the exit, hand in hand with Ethan, who was blissfully unaware of the complexities of adult emotions. As they walked, Alex felt a sense of hope settle within him. Perhaps they could redefine their relationship, not just for Ethan's sake, but for their own as well. Weeks turned into months, and their co-parenting arrangement blossomed into a genuine friendship. They shared parenting responsibilities with ease, always prioritizing Ethan's happiness. The conversations between them grew deeper, filled with laughter and shared experiences, and they began to forge new memories that celebrated their journey together. One evening, while they were preparing dinner in Sarah's kitchen, a playful banter ensued. Alex chopped vegetables while Sarah stirred a pot on the stove, and their laughter echoed through the room as they recounted funny mishaps from their past. It was a refreshing change, and Alex felt a sense of warmth enveloping him, something he had missed for so long. "Remember that time we tried to make that fancy dinner for our anniversary and ended up burning everything?" Sarah chuckled, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "How could I forget?" Alex laughed, shaking his head. "We ended up with takeout and a kitchen that smelled like smoke." As they shared memories, Alex realized how much he cherished these moments. They were no longer just co-parents navigating a difficult situation. They were friends, partners in parenting, and a support system for each other. That night, after Ethan had gone to bed, they settled down on the couch with mugs of hot cocoa. The conversation turned serious as they reflected on their journey since the breakup. "I think we've both grown a lot," Sarah said thoughtfully, her voice soft. "It hasn't been easy, but I feel like we're finally in a good place." "I agree," Alex replied, his gaze steady. "I've learned so much about myself and what I want." I'm grateful for the time we've had to heal and grow. Sarah looked at him, her expression sincere. I want you to know that I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I never meant to hurt you, and I'm proud of how far we've come. Alex nodded, appreciating her honesty. I'm sorry too, for the anger and the misunderstandings. I think we've both had to let go of a lot to move forward. They sat in comfortable silence, their hearts full of understanding. In that moment, Alex realized that while their romantic relationship had ended, a new, stronger bond had taken its place. They were learning to appreciate each other for who they were now, not who they had been. As the holidays approached, Alex and Sarah decided to celebrate together as a family. They decorated the house, hung lights, and baked cookies with Ethan, sharing in the excitement of the season. There was a magic in the air as they created traditions that would shape Ethan's childhood. On Christmas Eve, they sat together in the living room, the glow of the tree lights casting a warm ambiance around them. They read holiday stories to Ethan, who snuggled between them, his eyes wide with wonder. Do you remember when we used to do this? Sarah asked, her voice filled with nostalgia. Of course, Alex smiled. This was one of my favorite traditions. As they turned the pages of a classic holiday tale, Alex felt a wave of gratitude. The warmth of the moment enveloped him, and he knew that despite their past, they were building something beautiful together for Ethan. On Christmas morning, the excitement in the air was palpable. They watched Ethan tear through wrapping paper, his laughter echoing through the house. In that moment, Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They were creating memories that would last a lifetime, and he couldn't have asked for a better co-parent to share this with. As the new year approached, Alex and Sarah found themselves reflecting on their journey once again. They had faced challenges, but they had also celebrated victories. Their bond had transformed, and they were finally able to support each other as friends and parents. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner, Alex decided to take a leap of faith. Sarah, can we talk about something? Sure. What's on your mind? She replied, her curiosity piqued. I've been thinking about our future, he started, choosing his words carefully. I know we've been navigating this co-parenting thing well, but I want to know if you'd be open to exploring a deeper friendship. Not necessarily romantic, but something more supportive and connected. Sarah looked thoughtful for a moment, processing his words. I'd like that, Alex. I think we have something special here, and I want to nurture it. We've come so far, and I believe we can keep growing together. Relief washed over him at her response. They spent the evening discussing what that deeper friendship could look like, sharing their aspirations, dreams, and fears while supporting each other as they continued to co-parent Ethan. As the new year dawned, they made a pact to continue building their relationship on trust and mutual respect. They wanted to be the best parents they could be while embracing the unique friendship they had forged. With each passing day, they found joy in their shared experiences, laughter in their conversations, and comfort in the knowledge that they were stronger together. They had weathered the storm and emerged on the other side ready to embrace whatever came next. One sunny afternoon in early spring, Alex suggested they take Ethan to a nearby nature reserve for a day of exploration. Sarah readily agreed, excited about the idea of spending time outdoors and watching Ethan discover the beauty of nature. The three of them packed a picnic, filled with sandwiches, fruit, and snacks, and headed out on their adventure. As they walked along the trails, Ethan raced ahead, his laughter ringing out as he chased butterflies and explored every nook and cranny. Alex and Sarah walked side by side, occasionally exchanging smiles and comments about their son's boundless energy. It felt natural, as if they were falling into a rhythm that had always been there. Do you remember our old hiking trips? Sarah asked, her voice laced with nostalgia. We used to go to that one trail with the waterfall. Yeah, and we always ended up slipping on the rocks. Alex chuckled, shaking his head at the memory. I think we spent more time laughing than actually hiking. Sarah laughed too, and in that moment, Alex felt a sense of ease wash over him. Their shared memories were no longer tinged with pain. They were simply joyful reflections of their past. As they settled down for their picnic on a grassy knoll, Ethan excitedly recounted everything he had seen that day. Sarah and Alex listened intently, their hearts swelling with pride at their son's enthusiasm for the world around him. After lunch, they decided to explore a nearby pond where they could watch for frogs and turtles. Ethan was fascinated, leaning over the edge to get a closer look. Alex and Sarah exchanged glances, their eyes filled with warmth as they watched their son's curiosity unfold. "Look, Mom, there's a turtle," Ethan exclaimed, pointing at the water. "That's awesome, buddy," Sarah replied, kneeling beside him. "Do you see how it's swimming? It's so fast." Alex felt a wave of contentment. They were creating a beautiful day together, and he couldn't help but think about how far they had come. The bond they were forming was not just for Ethan, but for themselves as well. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they made their way back to the car. Ethan was tired but happy, his little face smeared with remnants of their picnic treats. "Can we do this again?" he asked, his eyes wide with hope. "Of course, buddy. We'll make it a regular thing," Alex replied, ruffling Ethan's hair affectionately. Sarah smiled, her heart full as she looked at her son. "I love that idea. There are so many places we can explore together." That night, after Ethan was tucked into bed, Alex and Sarah sat on the couch, sipping tea. The atmosphere was comfortable, filled with a sense of companionship. "Today was really special," Alex said, breaking the silence. "It felt good to be out in nature, just the three of us." Sarah nodded in agreement. "It reminded me of how much we used to enjoy the outdoors together. I think we should keep making these memories." Alex smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I'd like that. Building these experiences for Ethan is important, and I think it's good for us too." As the weeks rolled on, they continued their outdoor adventures, exploring parks, visiting museums, and attending local events. Each outing strengthened their bond, and they began to realize that their friendship was evolving into something deeper, a connection built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. One afternoon, while they were preparing for another family outing, Sarah approached Alex with a thoughtful expression. "Can we talk about something important?" "Absolutely," he replied, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "I've been thinking about our arrangement," she said, her voice steady. "We've built such a strong friendship, and I want to discuss what that means for us moving forward. Do you think we should consider living closer together or even exploring the idea of a more cohesive family unit?" Alex felt a rush of emotions at her words. He had been contemplating the same thing but hadn't known how to broach the subject. "I've thought about that too. I want us to be a family for Ethan, and I believe we can create a supportive environment together." A smile broke across Sarah's face, and relief washed over Alex. They spent the next hour discussing their hopes and dreams, envisioning a future where they could cohabitate and blend their lives even more seamlessly. As the months passed, they began to take steps toward a more united family structure. They explored options for shared living arrangements that would allow them to maintain their independence while also fostering a nurturing environment for Ethan. The idea excited them both, and they felt a renewed sense. As summer approached, their lives felt more harmonious than ever, but one fateful afternoon, everything changed. Ethan came home from a playdate with a slight cough and a low-grade fever. At first, Sarah and Alex brushed it off as a common cold, but as the days passed, Ethan's condition worsened. He became increasingly lethargic, and his cough deepened. Worried, Sarah took him to the pediatrician. After a thorough examination, the doctor recommended a series of tests. The results came back alarming. Ethan had developed pneumonia. The news hit them like a ton of bricks. Alex and Sarah exchanged panicked glances, and a wave of fear washed over them. The doctor explained that while pneumonia could be treated, Ethan would need to be hospitalized for observation and treatment. As they arrived at the hospital, the sterile smell and bright lights felt overwhelming. Ethan, usually so full of energy, looked small and frail in the hospital gown. He clung to Sarah's hand, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. "I'm scared, Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I know, sweetheart, but the doctors are here to help you get better," Sarah reassured him, her heart aching at the sight of her son's distress. She knelt beside him, brushing his hair away from his forehead. "We're going to be right here with you, every step of the way." Alex stood close by, his expression grim but determined. He reached for Ethan's other hand, squeezing it gently. "We're a team, buddy. You're going to be okay. We'll make sure of it." Days turned into a blur of hospital routines. Ethan received antibiotics and was monitored closely by a dedicated team of medical professionals. Both Sarah and Alex took turns staying overnight, never leaving Ethan's side for too long. They took comfort in each other's presence, united in their shared worry and love for their son. One evening, as they sat by Ethan's bedside, Sarah noticed that he seemed more restless than usual. "Ethan, would you like us to read you a story?" she asked, trying to distract him from the discomfort. "Can we read my favorite book?" he replied weakly, his eyes lighting up for a moment. "Of course," Alex said, a smile breaking through his worry. He pulled out the book from Ethan's backpack, and they began to read together, their voices softly filling the room. As they read, Ethan's eyes began to droop, and soon he fell asleep, exhaustion overtaking him. Sarah and Alex exchanged glances, their hearts heavy with the weight of the situation. "Do you think he'll be okay?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I believe he will be," Alex replied firmly, though he felt doubt creeping in. "He's strong, and he has us fighting for him." The next morning, Ethan's condition took a turn for the worse. He developed a high fever and struggled to breathe. The doctors rushed in, their expressions serious as they worked quickly to stabilize him. Watching helplessly from the corner of the room, Sarah and Alex held hands tightly, their hearts racing. The fear they felt was palpable, and it was a stark reminder of how fragile life could be. Hours passed, and finally, the doctors emerged from Ethan's room. "He's responding to the treatment," one of the doctors said, trying to reassure them. "We're going to keep a close eye on him, but he's in good hands." Relief flooded through Sarah and Alex, but it was tempered by the uncertainty that still loomed. They spent the rest of the day by Ethan's side, talking to him, reading to him, and holding his hand as he slept. As the days wore on, Ethan slowly started to improve. The fever subsided, and his breathing became more stable. Each small victory felt monumental, and Sarah and Alex celebrated every positive change, keeping each other's spirits up through the toughest moments. Finally, after a week of treatment, the doctor came in with good news. "Ethan is responding well and can be discharged tomorrow, provided he continues to improve overnight." Tears of relief filled Sarah's eyes. Thank you so much." Alex wrapped his arm around Sarah, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They spent the rest of the evening preparing to take Ethan home, bringing comfort items from home and making plans for his recovery. The next morning, when Ethan was finally discharged, they were filled with joy. As they walked out of the hospital, Ethan held their hands tightly, a smile breaking through the weariness on his face. "Can we go to the park now?" he asked, his voice still slightly raspy but filled with excitement. "Absolutely. We'll make it a special day," Alex replied, grinning. As they drove to the park, laughter filled the car, and the sun shone brightly overhead, as if the world was celebrating Ethan's return home. Sarah and Alex exchanged hopeful glances, grateful for the small victories and the bond they had forged through this trying experience. However, deep down, a shadow of worry lingered in both their hearts. The park was filled with families enjoying the sunny day, and Ethan's energy returned in bursts as he ran around, playing on the swings and climbing the jungle gym. For a moment, it felt like everything was back to normal, and they relished the joy of watching their son play. But as the day wore on, Ethan suddenly stopped in his tracks, clutching his side and looking pale. "Mom, I don't feel so good," he said, his small body trembling. Panic surged through Sarah and Alex as they rushed to his side. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Sarah asked, kneeling beside him. "I can't breathe," he gasped, his eyes wide with fear. Before they could react, Ethan collapsed, and chaos erupted around them. Sarah screamed for help while Alex frantically called 911. As they waited for assistance, they did everything they could to keep Ethan conscious, urging him to focus on their voices. "Stay with us, buddy. Help is on the way," Alex pleaded, his heart pounding in his chest. The ambulance arrived quickly, and paramedics rushed to take over. They worked feverishly to stabilize Ethan, but as they loaded him into the ambulance, Sarah felt a deep sense of foreboding settle in her stomach. At the hospital, the doctors moved swiftly, but the atmosphere was tense. They ran tests and performed procedures, but Ethan's condition continued to deteriorate. Sarah and Alex clung to each other, their hearts racing in fear as they waited for news. Hours stretched into an agonizing blur, and finally, a doctor approached them with a somber expression. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Ethan has developed complications, and despite our best efforts, his condition has worsened significantly. We're doing everything we can, but he's very critical right now." The words hit like a thunderclap, shattering their hopes. They felt as if the ground had fallen away beneath them, leaving them suspended in a void of despair. "No, please. He's a fighter," Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. "He just came home. He was getting better." "I'm so sorry," the doctor repeated, his eyes filled with compassion. "We need to prepare you for the worst." In the following hours, time seemed to stand still. They were allowed to see Ethan one last time. He lay in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines beeping ominously. His small body looked so fragile, and he was barely conscious, yet he managed to turn his head slightly when he heard their voices. "Mom? Dad?" he whispered, his voice weak. "We're here, sweetheart. We love you so much," Sarah choked out, kneeling beside him and holding his small hand tightly. "Don't be scared, buddy. You're so brave," Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the overwhelming grief. As they spoke to him, tears flowed freely, and they poured their love into him, trying to give him the strength to fight. But deep down, they knew they were losing him. Minutes turned into an eternity, and despite their unwavering love and support, Ethan's condition continued to decline. They watched helplessly as the monitors began to show alarming signs. In that fragile moment, the room filled with a flurry of activity as medical staff rushed in, trying to revive him. Sarah and Alex stood frozen, their hearts breaking as they realized that the laughter and joy of the past weeks had vanished, replaced by a chilling reality. "Please, no," Sarah cried out, her voice filled with desperation. But despite their pleas, the doctors worked tirelessly, and after what felt like an eternity, they stepped back, their faces grave. "I'm so sorry," one of them said softly, unable to meet their eyes. "We did everything we could." The words echoed in Sarah and Alex's minds, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. They collapsed into each other's arms, the weight of grief crashing down like a tidal wave. In that hospital room, surrounded by the sterile smells and the incessant beeping of machines, they lost a piece of their hearts. Their precious Ethan, once so full of life and laughter, was gone. As they left the hospital that night, the world felt colder and darker. They walked out into the night, hand in hand, forever changed by the tragedy they had endured. The laughter they had shared, the dreams they had built, all faded.